Welcome into another episode of Lock City MMA. This week we have UFC Fight Night, Plessis versus Usman. Now, last week we made some good money, so let's go ahead jump into the breakdowns because I think this card is full of knockouts and submissions, and it is some easy money to be made. Let's get to it. All right, in the main event we have Dracus du Plessis versus Kamaru Usman. Now, Dracus is coming off a loss to Hamza Chimaev, where basically he just got out wrestled for 5 rounds. It was a pretty boring fight, to be honest, but it did show a couple things. Number one, it showed that Dracus has honest belief in himself. He's never going to give up in a fight, which is a really good characteristic that you want to see with a UFC fighter. He also showed that he does have a pretty good gas tank because at the end of that fight, he did start landing some significant punches on Hamzat, which was starting to hurt him. So even though he lost, he did show some really good signs. Now, Dracus's kind of fight style is he'll lunge at you, and when he's lunging at you, he'll throw a 3 or 4 piece combo, which is kind of different and unique and kind of goofy. So in the UFC, when you're not throwing just the standard strikes, this kind of goofy shit sometimes will get through, and it's hard for opponent to predict if you've never seen it before. So he does land with some good success with it. He did land on Sean Strickland when he beat him twice. You know, and after he throws those punches, he can also lead with high kicks and low kicks. He uses these kicks really well to kind of keep the distance from his opponent and kind of keep him right where he wants him to be, just in case he does want to shoot for a takedown. That's another good trait about Dracus, in my opinion, is that he has a good variety of fight style depending on his opponent. So he can strike, he can kick, but he's also a super good wrestler. He does have 11 submission wins, which is pretty impressive, and is definitely a threat if he can get to the top position on Kamaru. You know, Dracus was a former champion, and there is a reason for that. He does have good power in his hands. You know, you can see that from how he kind of destroys Sean Strickland's face. So he's definitely not something that you can sleep on there. Now, Kamaru Usman is 39 years old. He's coming off a win against Joaquin Buckley, where he did the same thing Hamza did to Dracus. He just out wrestled Buckley for 3 rounds, 5 round fight, and it just made it kind of a super boring match. Before that, he's lost to Leon Edwards. He's lost to Leon Edwards twice, actually. He's also lost to Hamza. So, I mean, this guy, Kamara, who fights about once a year, he's got really bad knees. This is something that is very well known. In his training camp, they say that he has to run on a lot of grass and does a lot of pull work to try to make sure those knees get as least amount of stress on them as they can, which when it comes to being a wrestler, your knees are pretty important. So the longevity of him being able to wrestle someone like Drickus for 5 rounds, I just can't see it happening. Honestly, Kamara likes to get people to the ground, and then he just uses some ground and pound. He's not a big submission threat, so Dragus won't have to worry about that. He's the type of guy where he just does enough damage to the person on bottom where the ref's not going to stand you up, and it can also be very effective to win the round. And he's one of those guys that gets a lot of grinded out decision wins. Now, he does have some really good knockouts in his career, like the one against Jorge Masvidal. But in his last couple fights, you could just tell on the feet he's getting a lot slower with his age, and he just doesn't throw as many punches. He'll throw out some jabs, he'll throw some low kicks, he'll throw some mid level kicks, and he does do a little left jab overhand right with some power on it. He just doesn't throw it very much. So, in my opinion, if he can't get Dracus to the ground, he's gonna get torched on the feet. So when it comes to the actual prediction for the fight, I think Kamaru Usman will probably get Dracus down in the first round, maybe even the second round. I think that Dracus, by the second round, will be able to get up, though, and he will start landing some damage on the feet because to get to that takedown, you're going to have to walk through some fire. And with Dracus' power and the way he can grapple, it's going to be hard for Kamara to just get takedowns in the first place, let alone be able to spam them like he likes to do in a lot of his fights. So I think that Kamara starts getting a little tired. Drake starts showing that he has the better cardio by the third, maybe fourth round. And Kamara's not going to be able to get those takedowns anymore. Because he's not able to get those takedowns, it's going to be a striking match, and you're just going to notice the difference between Drakus and Kamaru. Drakus is going to be a lot faster. He's going to have more unique combos, maybe even some spinning attacks. And I think he knocks out Kamaru Usman in the fourth or fifth round. A submission is also live here, but Drake is submitted Izzy in the fourth round. So, like I said earlier in the part of this video, is he never gives up on the fight and he never gives up on himself, and he always looks to finish. So that is some of the reasons, not only why he's a former champion, but why he's so fun to watch. I think that you're going to see a little bit of a size difference here as well. I think Kamaru is kind of a smaller man for the weight class since he's moved up to 185, and I think that's going to play a factor in the grappling. I got Drakus du Plessis by TKO, fourth round. Lock it in. Time for the co-main event of the night. We have Jared the Killer Gorilla Cannonier versus Christian Leroy Duncan, CLD. Now, Jared Cannonier is 42 years old coming into this fight. He hasn't fought since almost a year ago, and in that last fight, he lost pretty badly to MVP. Jared is 1-3 in his last four fights and is really looking like he's starting to slow down a lot when it comes to his fighting style and his explosiveness. That explosiveness is kind of what made Jared so good inside the UFC ring because his skills are pretty standard when it comes to striking. He doesn't do a lot of spinning attacks or he doesn't really bob in and out of the pocket like people cross avoid. So he just kind of walks up, straight left jab, overhand right. And the problem with that is it leaves your head on the center line. And when you leave your head on the center line, that can really be a bad position against good strikers because you're going to get hit. And he has gotten hit. He's been getting beat up in some of his last couple fights. And when he tries to bully people, what he does is he tries to bully them up against the fence when he's walking forward with some straight jab pressure. But he never brings anyone to the ground. So when you're going up against someone like Christian Leroy Duncan, I don't feel like it's a very good stylistic matchup as well. And just the fact that how much Jared has slowed down over the past couple years. I mean, he's 42 years old, guys. I love the guy. He did beat Sean Strickland, but everyone thinks Sean Strickland did get robbed in that fight. But he's fighting Christian Leroy Duncan. Now, Christian Leroy Duncan, or CLD, is he's a rangy kickboxer. He's going to have a huge speed advantage when it comes to the stand up fight. So if Jared wants to try to take him down, which I don't think he can, Christian Leroy Duncan has been taken down. He's been taken down by Roman Dolence in the first and third round of that fight, and he won a split decision just because he did just did enough damage on the feet to make a difference on the scorecard. Now, the other thing I really like about CLD is he's got 10 knockouts over his career, so he's got some really heavy hands. And he's got 5 knockouts, though, in the second round. Now, what that tells me is that he's not just one of those guys that come in the first round, blow all their energy, and if they don't get the knockout, it's just going to be a boring decision fight like you see in some of these other matchups. So this guy is dangerous throughout the entire fight, and he does have some good takedown defense, but his striking is what really makes CLD special. He likes to throw in spinning elbows. He has some really good combos that he likes to throw on his feet. So Jared Cannonier will and always has been more of a striker. So I just don't see this going well for him. I see CLD knocking out Jared Cannonier by the second or third round, and I think it's going to be pretty vicious. I don't think Jared's going to look any faster than he has in his previous fights. And I think that that speed difference is going to be way too much and it's going to overwhelm him. And he's going to get caught. And when he gets caught with someone like CLD, you're going to go to sleep. So I'm calling CLD by knockout, and you can lock that in. And next we have Tabitha Baby Shark Ritchie versus Fatima the Archangel Klein. Now, the only reason Tabitha Ritchie is here is because Amanda Hebos pulled out and Ritchie is stepping in on short notice. So that's always something you want to know when it comes to the betting side of things. Tabitha Ritchie likes to kind of flurry with her attacks on the striking, kind of like Drakus does when he likes to lunge at his opponents. And once she gets opponents against the cage, she's really good at landing some big elbows on them. For example, she actually knocked out Amanda Hebos with elbows in the clinch 2 fights ago for her last win. Now, Tabitha is 1-2 in her last 3 fights, so she's kind of coming on the decline against Klein, ironically, who is in the opposite direction of her career. Tabitha Ritchie does have some good grappling. She's no scrub on the ground, and she's definitely had some good performances before using jiu-jitsu. Now, in the case against Fatima Klein, she's about 5 to 6 inches shorter, and I think that will play a big part when it comes to the grappling and the wrestling in this fight. And it'll almost neutralize that fact that Tabitha won't be able to utilize her wrestling against Fatima because of that. And I think that it will be a striking match. And 3 fights ago, when Tabitha Ritchie fought Jan, she just got picked apart on her feet. She's not the smoothest or quickest when it comes to striking. And I think that's going to play a big factor in this fight. Now, Fatima Klein, on the other hand, though, she is one of the top upcoming prospects in this division. She just absolutely walked through Angela Hill and put on a clinic with her striking. After watching that fight and some of these previous fights I've been watching on the tape on Ritchie, there is just 2 different levels when it comes to striking with these 2 fighters. She not only can strike well when I'm talking about Klein, she also has really good head kicks. And behind those head kicks, she lands quick and powerful jabs. She has super fast hands, and that makes her on the feet a lot more dangerous than Ritchie, in my opinion. Now, Klein can also grapple. She's not elite, like I said. I think she's a good enough grappler to cancel out anything that Tabitha Ritchie is going to try to do, either in the clinch or when she tries to bring her down to the ground. So I think this will pretty much have a dominant stand up fight here. Now, I can see Tabitha Ritchie looking good in maybe the first couple rounds, have some success with pushing Klein to the cage, but I feel like Klein will adapt to that. And once she gets a feel for Tabitha's style, she's going to start blocking those attempts more. And I think she's just going to tee off on Ritchie. Now, Ritchie is a tough, kind of sappy veteran. There's the concept I like to use a lot in my videos, but it's true. So knocking her out is going to be a tough task that I think Klein can definitely do, but I don't see happening. What I see happening is that Klein just wins a 30-27 decision over Ritchie when the stand up is just way too much. There's going to be a big speed difference. There's going to be just a talent difference when it comes to striking, and that will be the biggest difference. And I think this fight's pretty easy call. This is one of my Lock City bets, so let's lock it in. Another fight to keep our eyes on for a finish is going to be Deon Barbosa versus Anna Melisano. Melisano's coming in on short notice, and she normally fights at a weight class lower. She normally fights at 115 pounds, and this fight is going to be held at 125 pounds. So those are 2 bad things to start with when it comes to the betting side on this fight for her. Not only that, Barbosa is just an absolute warrior on the ground. She just kind of mauls her opponents. She doesn't let them back up once she gets you to the ground. She knows how to work in some ground and pound, but that ground and pound is mainly a distraction to try to get you to slip up so she can get you in a submission. She has good cardio because she's a wrestler, and I can see that playing a big factor in this fight since Anna's coming up on short notice and fighting a weight class above. For some of the casuals out there, like if you fight 125 pounds, these girls probably weigh 140, 145. So there's just going to be a big difference on the actual fight night when it comes to size. And I think Barbosa is just going to use that to her advantage. She's a decent striker, so I don't think she's going to get caught or knocked out on the feet. but I think she's going to be able to use her striking enough to push Anna back to the cage and then get her down with the takedown. I think Barbosa just swarms her on the ground. She's just going to be another level of talent that Anna hasn't seen before since this is going to be her UFC debut. So I think Barbosa wins by submission. I think that's a pretty easy call. I don't really see this fight going any other way besides Barbosa, maybe a decision, but I'm going to bet on Barbosa by submission. You can lock that in. And some other fights you guys might want to know about or add to your parlays, starting with Chase Hooper versus Mitch Ramirez. Now, what you have to realize is Chase Hooper is coming off a back-to-back vicious KOs. Now, when a fighter is in a slump like this, sometimes the UFC, if they really like you, which they do with Chase Hooper, everyone really likes Chase Hooper. He's a nice guy, and they don't want to lose his fan base. So what they're going to do is give you an opponent that is probably a level underneath where you're at. That way you can get a win, get everything back on track, and start having the better mental when it comes to your next fight. Mitch Ramirez in the UFC eyes is this next step down from Chase Hooper. Now, Mitch Ramirez, as you can see from his record here, is 1-3 in his last 4 fights, and he's just not the greatest overall fighter when it comes to striking and grappling. He's definitely going to have the striking advantage in this fight, but the problem is Mitch is very susceptible to getting taken down. And when you're fighting someone with the skills that Chase Hooper has, as soon as he gets you to the ground, he's either going to ground and pound or submit you. I don't see this going well for Mitch, and I think Chase is just going to get him to the ground quick, and he's going to submit him. So I got Chase Hooper winning this fight by submission. Another fight I want to talk about is Tommy McMillan versus Alberto Montez. Now, Tommy McMillan trains with Sean O'Malley, and he's kind of his protege. He's got similar hair. He's got a Goku tattoo right here, and then a Scarface tattoo on his other side of his chest. So you can tell this guy is kind of a wild character. He's one of the UFC's top upcoming prospects. As of right now, he is 10-0. He has a knockout in his last fight, so he's coming off some good feelings. Now, the problem is he's fighting Alberto Montez. Now, Alberto Montez just happens to be another top prospect coming up in the UFC. You very rarely get a fight when you have 2 of the top prospects coming up in that weight division because UFC usually tries to save these guys to make them stars. Now, Alberto's coming in on a 4-1 fight streak as well, with the submission that he caught late, Darce choke, in his last fight against Ricky. Now, Tommy McMullen's biggest problem is that he gets hit. He has really good striking. He's a super aggressive fighter, but with that aggressive style, it allows for him and his chin to get hit. So I think at this point, I don't think Alberto is strong enough on the striking to knock Tommy out clean, but I think he's strong enough to hurt Tommy that where if it were to go to the ground, if Tommy gets hit, goes down to the ground, I could see Montez getting on top of Tommy and finishing him. But I could also see Tommy just kind of picking this guy apart from range, stuffing a couple takedowns, maybe surviving 1 or 2 takedowns and getting his back up to the cage and backing up and getting up. So it really comes down to, in my opinion, who's going to be able to tit-tat and point their way to this win. I think it's going to be a decision win for someone. And if it's going to be a decision, I just think Tommy is going to outpoint Alberto and get the W here. He's got a really good teacher with Sean, and I think he's going to have a good game plan coming in and have a good fight. Another fight we can talk about is going to be Alden Cora versus Stuart Nicole. Now, the only reason I want to bring up this fight, you're going to see that this guy is the biggest favorite on the card. So they're almost guaranteeing he's going to win. Stuart Nicole's coming on a 3-fight losing streak. He got knocked out by Costa. And Corey over here has knocked out Costa. He's a better striker than Costa. So if you just do MMA math, which is always stupid to say, obviously Corey's going to have an advantage. But besides that, I think he's a better striker. I think he's quicker. I think he's younger. I think he's going to be bigger in the ring. So if you're going to try to bet this fight, I would definitely go Cora by KO. If you guys have any other questions, this next slide is going to be my parlays and my bets. So I appreciate everyone. Please drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. I need one more subscriber so I can go live. So please help me out. I appreciate it. All right, and everyone's favorite part of the night, the actual picks. Let's start with Lock City Parlay. It's going to be Dracus du Plessis, Christian Leroy Duncan, and Fatina Klein, plus 129. Beers for the boys are those same picks, plus Chase Hooper and Dion Barbosa. Fatina Klein should be in that graphic. The third bet's going to be the KO Parlay, where Christian Leroy Duncan knocks out Jared Cannonier, probably in the first round, plus 165. And then not going all the way, parlay. Dracus du Plessis to win by KO sub or DQ to reign as the king of South Africa. Thank you for everyone that's made it this far in the video. Please drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's go make some money. Lock it in.